This video is brought to you by Mubi, an online cinema at your fingertips streaming hand-selected films from around the globe. Start your 1-month free trial right now by going to mubi.com/entertaintheelk. 2001: A Space Odyssey is widely considered the best science fiction film of all time, and a large part of that is due to its now iconic soundtrack. But at the film's 1968 New York City premiere, it was supposed to sound like this. So what happened? This is Alex North, a famous film composer with a career spanning 7 decades. Of the dozens of films for which he composed music, he amassed 15 Academy Award nominations and finally received an honorary Academy Award in 1986, becoming only the second film composer to ever do so. It was while working on the 1960 film Spartacus where North met director Stanley Kubrick. And it was because of their already forged relationship that 8 years later, MGM suggested North as the composer to Kubrick's latest film, 2001: A Space Odyssey. The only problem was that Kubrick had already grown attached to selected temporary tracks of classical music from artists like Richard Strauss and Johann Strauss that were originally meant to be merely placeholders during the production and editing process. MGM was adamant that a Cinerama event of this scope required an original score, especially because it was almost unheard of at the time for a major motion picture's soundtrack to consist entirely of pre-recorded music. North was convinced that he could improve on the classical tracks with a contemporary and progressive score, which he believed would better suit the science fiction genre, and also carry more of a dramatic punch. Kubrick attended the recording sessions, making suggestions and playing the temp tracks as musical inspiration. But as much as North would try and emulate those songs, it quickly became clear that Kubrick wouldn't be satisfied with anything other than the tracks he personally selected. Upon hearing North's score, Kubrick said, "It's a marvelous piece of music, a beautiful piece, but it doesn't suit my picture." North only scored the first half of the picture before he was told that his services were no longer needed. And as North attended the New York premiere months later, he was shocked and humiliated to find that not a single note of his 40-minute score made it into the film. Kubrick was the very definition of an auteur director, wielding his authority like an autocratic ruler, micromanaging every aspect and detail of his productions. Nothing was out of his artistic control, and that included the musical composition. Leading up to 2001: A Space Odyssey, Kubrick was already moving away from the standard practice of hiring a composer to write a score, and in the direction of compilation scores, which he would use predominantly moving forward. This granted him greater control over the music in his films, as opposed to entrusting someone else with such a vital responsibility. And with that decision, Alex North's music was never heard by the general public, until 25 years later, when fellow composer Jerry Goldsmith produced and conducted a re-recording of the entire score. And then another 14 years later, in 2007, North's original recordings from 1968 were finally released. Now, with North's original score, we're able to compare his version and the eventual end result with their accompanying sequences from 2001: A Space Odyssey in order to get an idea of what could have been and a better understanding of what led to Kubrick's eventual rejection. The most obvious difference between North's music and the final result is found in the Dawn of Man segment at the beginning of the film. North composed the songs The Foraging, The Bluff, Night Terrors, and Eat, Meet, and Kill to coincide with the ape storyline, but in the end, Kubrick completely stripped the music from these corresponding moments. He could have kept them in the final film, as he didn't replace them with any classical temp tracks, but he opted for complete silence, not wanting to undercut the action on screen or spoon-feed emotional cues to the audience. For the docking sequence later in the film, Kubrick was struck by one of the most famous waltzes in musical history, the Blue Danube by Johann Strauss. What at first seemed to be an odd choice, plugging in a 19th century waltz into a science fiction film, the effect worked beautifully. Kubrick took the essence of grace and beauty found in a waltz and used it to accompany the weightless, mechanical giants in outer space. It's a deliberately slow piece, which matches the methodical action on screen. Now, compare that to North's song, Space Station Docking. A beautiful song in its own right, but doesn't possess the same flow and tranquility found in the Blue Danube. The fluttering and frenzied sound of the song evokes a feeling of flying, instead of a grand dance between two objects, which is exactly what's happening between the ship and the docking station. The most iconic song from 2001 is Richard Strauss's Also Sprach Zarathustra. It's a song that carries dramatic weight, but it also contains deeper elements that align with 2001's overall themes. The title, Also Sprach Zarathustra, is inspired by Friedrich Nietzsche's narrative fable of the same name, which propounds the theory of the Superman, the next stage of humanity's spiritual and theological evolution. And Kubrick utilized this song to help reinforce this concept. Throughout 2001, we hear Also Sprach Zarathustra 3 times. 1. When apes roam the earth. 2. When apes discover tools. And 3. When Dr. Dave Bowman becomes the Star Child. By the end of the film, the song becomes a leitmotif, wielded to signal man's evolutionary jumps. 1, 2, 3. Ape, man, Superman. C, G, C. In his thinking that the scene had already been shot and cut to fit with Also Sprach Zarathustra, North felt it wisest to mimic the song as best he could, not only in tone, but also in timing and rhythm. The end result is a song that feels more joyful and ecstatic, rather than dramatic and epic in its scope. No matter what North wrote, it was always doomed to fail in comparison. North wanted a score that provided consistency, uniformity, and a contemporary style. But Kubrick didn't want a consistent musical style across his film, and he certainly didn't want the music to give the impression of music from 1968. In the end, Kubrick chose musical pieces that combined perfectly with the images on screen in order to actively engage his audience. By doing so, he was able to elevate the visual and musical elements to another level entirely. My favorite directors have always been auteur directors like Stanley Kubrick, who consistently push the art of film to new heights. And with Mubi, I'm always able to find new titles that challenge me and push me creatively. If you've never heard of it, Mubi is an online cinema that streams hand-selected films from around the globe. These range from cult classics and award-winning documentaries to forgotten gems and new independent films. And instead of tirelessly searching through thousands of options, Mubi only carries 30 films at a time on a rotating schedule. Every day a new selection is added to the 30, and every day the oldest film is removed. Finally, a simple service for people who love cinema. Start your 1-month free trial and start watching movies right now by going to mubi.com/entertaintheelk. Thanks everyone so much for watching. Entertain the Elk just passed 200,000 subscribers, which is amazing and mind-blowing all at the same time, so I just wanted to thank all of you for watching and for supporting this channel over the past 2 years. If you haven't already, please subscribe below. That way you can be a part of this channel and make sure you don't miss any new content whenever it drops. If you like this video, please like it and share it with a friend, and I will see you all next time. Thanks.